Hello, it's just me again here with my weekly message. So, the village is coming up to celebrate Halloween, and I know sort of people and Christians have various reactions to this. So, I think at the moment the village is just, um, I think it's good. I mean, we don't particularly want big groups tricking and treating, perhaps in present circumstances, but there is a feeling that, particularly with these restrictions on, dark, cold winter evenings in November, that actually we also need a bit of colour and joy and whatever. So I think it's great the village is getting together and sort of do a bit of sort of decoration and livening the place up and giving people a bit of fun about the place. And as I say, sometimes people don't like aspects of that. I mean, either say it's an American thing, or they don't really like tricking or treating, or they don't really like the whole sort of ghoulish thing of it. And sometimes Christians, understandably, aren't sort of terribly keen on that side of it. So I just want to say a little bit about what the Christian background is, because we are going to join in a bit. Hopefully, you might have heard we're doing a bit of sort of decoration around the churchyard. We are avoiding the more sort of ghoulish things. It will be about light, the light that Christ gives, and we're going to have some activities like sort of making gargoyles, but we can't really object to gargoyles because we've already got them on the church. So we're trying to sort of join in, but kind of make it also our own and right with what the church believes. So, I mean, first of all, to say, of course, there is a link between Halloween and the church. I mean, the two depend on one another. I mean, the word Halloween is, as you probably know, All Hallows Eve or All Saints Day Eve. Hallows just an old English word for saints. So 31st of October, night before the 1st of November, which is All Saints, and then 2nd of November is All Souls. And I want to just say a little bit about those and what we are thinking of as Christians. So I think in this time of the year when it suddenly starts to feel a bit dark, Christians are celebrating light and the light of Christ, and particularly remember how in the resurrection Jesus conquers death. There is darkness over the whole land in his death, but then the Easter morning comes and light shines in that darkness. It's part of the Christian story. And so All Saints and All Souls are perhaps the kind of the 2 days when we kind of think, well, what does that actually mean? And of course, it means that our lives do not finish with our physical death. Very importantly, the church is kind of split into what we used to call the church militant here on earth and the church triumphant in heaven, but actually all one, the body of Christ. The church, as I say, is bisected by death, but it's also united in Jesus, and that's kind of what we're thinking about at this time. Now, of course, people will point out, and they're quite right, that when Paul writes, to all the saints in the church in Corinth, Thessalonica, or whatever it is, I mean, the word there he's using in the Greek hagios, from where we get Hagia Sophia, it just means anybody, the holy ones. I mean, literally is what it means. So he's using that to refer to any Christian in those communities. And so we might think, well, all saints, isn't that just all Christians? In a sense, yeah, it's right. Though we might think a bit more about that as all souls. And I think as Protestants have felt a bit ambiguous about singling out certain people at All Saints to be saints. And since the Reformation, the Church of England, although it's remembered people, has never made new saints, as it were. And we're this sort of, again, wonderful Anglican compromise, in that we remember saints from old, so we can talk about St Augustine and I know St Cyprian, St Stephen, all the rest of it. But once we get to Reformation, then we don't call them saints anymore, even if we remember, Thomas Cranmer or Charles Wesley or whoever. We don't put the word saints in front of them. So great Anglican compromise. But I think whatever, I do think there is a need. I mean, you can go into a very sort of evangelical bookshop and you can find lots and lots of, I mean, sometimes often very good biographies of, early Christians. So I think, that need to have heroes of the faith, to hear their biographies, to hear their stories, to hear those stories of Christian life lived out is a kind of necessary part of the Christian faith. And it is very much part of the early church. The first churches were often raised on the tombs of martyrs. Go to the catacombs in Rome, and this is exactly what happens. That the tombs become the altars, and that's quite an early development. Now, of course, there's bits of cults of the saints which go a bit over the top, perhaps a bit sort of too Catholic for us or whatever. But I think that need, that intention to remember those stories of heroism, etc., is very deep and goes back a long way. And so, one of the things that we remember on Halloween or All Hallows Eve is to remember the light of Christ shining through other people. And then we come to sort of All Souls the next day, which, as I say, in a sense, we can merge with All Saints. Now, we often, particularly think of those who've lost somebody in the past year or whatever, and particularly, for ourselves personally, the people that we've loved and lost who've lived many years before. But of course, that day is really a day when we simply remember all the departed. If you like, it's just going from that narrow focus of All Saints and branching it out so that we remember everybody that's died. Now, again, the Protestants get a bit worried about sort of praying for the dead, and I don't particularly want to get into that argument now. But it's only natural, I think, that people remember loved ones. I mean, it's impossible not to, in a way, isn't it? I mean, we remember them with fondness, and then also celebrate the victory of Jesus, which gives us hope. And I think that's, it's very, very important at that point, rather than being an abstract hope. Hopefully on November the 2nd becomes a bit more concrete, that we think, thanks to Jesus, his victory over death at the resurrection, we haven't said finally goodbye to, people we've loved, our parents, a partner, a child, a relative, a friend, or whatever. We do believe that at last we will be reunited in the kingdom of heaven. That is a fundamental Christian hope, and that the parting we have in this life is a temporary one. So, as I say, that's something we kind of celebrate the whole year. It's something we celebrate every time we celebrate the Eucharist. That's what the Eucharist is about. We particularly think about it at Easter, of course. But I think this is a time where, it is acceptable to have take that sort of abstract belief of Christ being the first fruits of those who've been raised from the dead. And they actually, and that applies to those people that I've loved, and just to remember them by name before God. And that seems to me a very natural and a very Christian thing to do. So you will see a bit of the church joining in Halloween. And I say there's maybe bits of Halloween that we love and there's bits that we're not so keen on. But I hope that just gives you a bit of the kind of fitting it into a Christian church framework, because it is, as I say, it's a Christian feast. There's no doubt about it, even if it's kind of become a bit commercial, a bit ghoulish or whatever. The basis is still there, and it's good that we understand it and we appreciate it and we celebrate it. Two great feasts of All Saints and All Souls. Thank you. Cheerio.